Brothers and sisters, today we are gathered to speak about one of the most urgent challenges facing our world, the crisis of Riba, the system of interest that has chained humanity in endless cycles of debt, greed, and inequality. Around the globe, economies rise and fall, people work day and night, and yet poverty increases while wealth concentrates in the hands of a few. Behind this imbalance lies a system built on exploitation, a system where money is created not to serve humanity, but to enslave it. But Islam, in its wisdom, gave us a complete and timeless economic model that protects human dignity and builds a society rooted in justice and compassion. It is not a utopian dream. It is a practical, divine system that has been tested and proven. The Islamic economic model is not just an alternative to the Riba system, it is the cure for it. Let us begin by understanding the reality of what Riba does to humanity. When interest becomes the foundation of the economy, money loses its moral value. Wealth begins to flow upwards, away from those who need it most. A poor person who takes a loan becomes poorer, and a rich lender becomes richer without effort or risk. This is not just an economic imbalance, it is a moral crime. It turns compassion into profit and generosity into exploitation. Look at the world today. Nations are buried under debts they can never repay. Families are crushed by interest on mortgages, car loans, and credit cards. Even education, a means to a better life, has become a lifetime burden of student loans. The Riba system does not liberate, it enslaves. It turns societies into consumers, constantly hungry for more but never satisfied, always paying back but never free. Islam, on the other hand, came to lift humanity out of this darkness. The Islamic economic model is not built on greed or self-interest. It is built on responsibility, fairness, and cooperation. It teaches that wealth is a trust from God, not a tool for oppression. The goal is not endless accumulation, but balance, between rich and poor, between earning and giving, between personal benefit and community welfare. In the Islamic model, wealth circulates. It moves from hand to hand, allowing everyone to benefit. The poor have their right in the wealth of the rich through charity, zakat, and voluntary giving. The businessman invests not just for profit, but with a sense of accountability before God. Every transaction must be honest, transparent, and beneficial to both sides. There is no deception, no gambling, no interest, and no exploitation. When Islam prohibits riba, it is not to restrict human progress. It is to preserve human dignity. Riba-free finance encourages real trade, real partnership, and real growth. It builds an economy on production, not speculation. It rewards effort, not manipulation. It encourages entrepreneurs to take risks and share profits and losses, creating relationships based on trust and cooperation instead of domination and control. Consider the concept of profit and loss sharing in Islamic finance. It brings people together rather than setting them apart. The investor and the entrepreneur become partners. If they succeed, they share the reward. If they fail, they share the burden. This is fairness in its purest form. It builds empathy between classes and creates a moral foundation for business. In this model, success is shared and loss is not placed on the shoulders of the weak. Imagine a society where banks do not profit from your hardship, where financial institutions invest in your success, and where the economy grows through ethical trade, not manipulation. That is what Islam envisions, a just and stable economy where wealth benefits all, not just the privileged few. In the Riba system, debt multiplies without mercy. In Islam, debt is treated with compassion. A debtor is not to be humiliated, but helped. A creditor is encouraged to forgive or give more time. The Prophet of Mercy taught us that the one who relieves the burden of another will have his own burden relieved on the day of judgment. This is not just economics, it is humanity. The Islamic model also promotes social responsibility. Zakat, the third pillar of Islam, ensures that the basic needs of society are met. It cleanses wealth, purifies hearts from greed, and bridges the gap between the rich and poor. When wealth is purified, society prospers. not just materially, but spiritually. In contrast, the Riba system creates endless inequality. It fuels inflation, speculation, and crises. It destroys small businesses and empowers corporations. It rewards manipulation instead of productivity. It makes the rich richer and the poor invisible, and when the system collapses, it is the common man who suffers the most. But Islam's model is different. It builds stability by linking finance to real assets and ethical values. Every transaction must be backed by something real, something beneficial. It discourages waste, encourages saving, and promotes investment in productive ventures. This is how wealth becomes a blessing, not a curse. When we look at the early generations of Muslims, we see how this model shaped entire civilizations. Under Islamic principles, trade flourished from Medina to Andalusia, from Africa to Asia. There was honesty in business, justice in governance, and compassion in society. Poverty was reduced to almost zero in some regions because the system worked, not because people were rich, but because they were righteous. Today, as the world faces financial crises, environmental collapse, and widening inequality, people are beginning to question the foundations of modern economics. They are searching for a system that values ethics over exploitation, justice over greed, and humanity over profit. That system already exists. It is the Islamic economic model, but to revive it, we must first change our mindset. We must stop admiring the very system that enslaves us. We must educate ourselves and our children about Islamic finance, about ethical trade, and about the responsibility that comes with wealth. We must support businesses and institutions that follow Islamic principles, and we must demand justice in our economic dealings. The cure for the Riba system is not only in our laws, but in our hearts. If we continue to chase wealth for its own sake, no system can save us. But if we seek wealth as a means to serve God and humanity, then even the smallest amount becomes blessed. Let us remember that success in Islam is not measured by how much we have, but by how we use what we have. True prosperity is not in numbers. It is in peace of mind, in contentment, in the blessings that come from honesty and compassion. A man with a pure income, earned through halal means, is richer in spirit than the one who lives in luxury built on exploitation. The Islamic economic model teaches us that every coin has a soul. It can be a means of mercy or a means of destruction. When we earn with integrity, spend with moderation, and give with sincerity, that coin becomes a seed of blessing. But when we earn through injustice and interest, it becomes poison, not just for us, but for the entire society. Brothers and sisters, we cannot reform the world unless we begin with ourselves. Let us make a personal commitment to stay away from interest-based transactions, to support ethical banking, to give charity regularly, and to be fair in every business deal. Every small step matters. When individuals change, families change. When families change, communities change. And when communities change, the world changes. The Islamic economic model is not a theory. It is a divine roadmap to peace and prosperity. It heals the wounds caused by greed, it uplifts the oppressed, and it builds societies on justice. The world is drowning in financial darkness, but the light of Islam still shines. We must carry that light forward. So let us rise with purpose. Let us build economies that reflect our faith, systems that reflect our values, and markets that reflect our mercy. Let us prove that Islam's way is not just spiritual guidance. It is the solution to humanity's greatest challenges. And when history looks back at us, let it say that this generation of Muslims revived the true economic spirit of Islam, a system that restored justice, compassion, and balance to a world lost in greed. May Allah guide us to earn lawfully, spend wisely, and give generously. May He bless our wealth, purify our intentions, and make us instruments of mercy in a world desperate for hope. That, my dear brothers and sisters, is the cure for the Riba system, the Islamic economic model, a path of justice, compassion, and divine blessing. Riba is not just an economic principle. It is a deep wound in the moral structure of humanity. It begins silently, creeping into our lives through promises of convenience and profit, but it slowly eats away at the very soul of society. It appears harmless at first, dressed in the language of progress, loans, and development, but beneath that disguise lies an engine of greed that consumes compassion, honesty, and fairness. The system of Riba turns what should be an act of mercy into a means of oppression. It transforms human relationships into transactions and generosity into exploitation. When interest governs economies, hearts grow cold, and people begin to measure worth only in numbers, forgetting that every coin carries a moral weight. When wealth grows through interest, it may look abundant, but it carries no blessing. It is like water from a poisoned well. It may quench thirst for a moment, but it destroys life in the long run. Those who chase profit without risk or effort lose the essence of humanity. They no longer see people, only profit margins. The poor become statistics, and debt becomes a tool of control. The modern world celebrates this illusion of growth, as skyscrapers rise and markets expand, but beneath the surface, inequality deepens and despair spreads. Families are burdened with endless debt, nations are trapped in economic slavery, and humanity is divided between the few who profit and the many who suffer. Islam came to heal this spiritual and economic illness. It does not condemn wealth, it purifies it. It does not suppress ambition, it guides it. The Islamic way of life teaches that prosperity must never come at the cost of justice, and success must never be built upon someone else's pain. The prohibition of riba is not a limitation, it is liberation. It frees both the giver and the receiver from a system that thrives on greed and fear. Islam teaches us that true prosperity is built not on accumulation, but on circulation, wealth that moves, benefits others, and uplifts communities. The riba system destroys from within because it feeds selfishness. It trains the heart to take without giving and to profit without working. It rewards laziness and punishes honesty. But the Islamic model heals the heart by teaching fairness, risk, sharing, and compassion. In an Islamic transaction, success is shared and loss is shared. Both sides are equal partners. This mutual respect builds trust, and trust builds stability. When people deal with each other sincerely, the economy grows not only in wealth but in harmony. The tragedy of riba is that it blinds people to morality. When interest becomes normal, oppression becomes invisible. The rich lender feels entitled, the borrower feels trapped, and society accepts this imbalance as the cost of progress. But Islam calls us to rise above that illusion. It reminds us that progress without compassion is regression, wealth without ethics is poverty of the soul. No matter how advanced a society becomes, if its foundation is built on exploitation, it will eventually crumble. The cure begins with us, with the choices we make every day. When we choose fairness over greed, when we help rather than exploit, when we earn with integrity and spend with gratitude, we begin to heal the world around us. The path of Islam is the path of justice, mercy, and balance. It asks us not to reject wealth but to purify it, not to avoid profit but to make it ethical, and not to abandon the world but to use it as a means to goodness. Every act of riba damages the trust that holds society together. It creates distance between hearts and makes people value profit more than peace. But every act of fairness, honesty, and mercy strengthens the bond of humanity. When we forgive a debt, when we help someone in financial need without expecting gain, when we choose ethical trade over easy interest, we reflect the beauty of faith in our daily lives. These small acts of goodness are not minor. They are the seeds of a just and compassionate society. Imagine a world where businesses are built on partnership, not oppression, where the lender invests in the borrower's success, not in their suffering, where banks do not profit from poverty, but from productivity, where every financial exchange is a reflection of trust and care. This is not a fantasy. It is the world that Islam envisions. It is the world that once existed in Muslim civilizations, where markets were vibrant, fair, and filled with honesty. To defeat riba, we must revive the values that once made the Islamic world strong: integrity, empathy, and accountability. We must support ethical institutions, educate the next generation about halal earning, and remind ourselves that every dollar we earn has a soul attached to it. The Prophet taught us that blessed wealth is the one earned honestly and spent responsibly. It brings peace to the heart, strength to the community, and blessings to life. Riba destroys from within, but Islam rebuilds from the heart. It calls us to cleanse our intentions, to earn with dignity, and to share with love. It transforms the act of trade into an act of worship, the act of charity into a path to paradise, and the act of sacrifice into a source of honor. When we choose this path, we are not just reforming the economy, we are reforming ourselves. So let us not be deceived by the glitter of interest-based wealth. It may look bright, but it is hollow inside. Let us instead seek wealth that carries light, wealth earned with honesty, shared with compassion, and blessed with divine approval. The true richness of life is not in what we possess, but in what we give. It is in the peace that comes from knowing our earnings are pure, our dealings are fair, and our hearts are free from greed. Riba corrupts the heart, but the Islamic economic system purifies it. The cure does not lie in changing the world alone, it lies in changing ourselves. And when hearts change, the world follows. The healing begins when we stop seeing money as power and start seeing it as a trust, a tool to serve, not to dominate. That is the cure that humanity has been searching for. That is the message that Islam has given us. That is the light that can still save our world. In Islam, wealth is not seen as a source of arrogance or pride, but as a sacred trust. It is not condemned because Islam recognizes that wealth can be one of the greatest blessings when it is earned through honesty and used for the right purpose. Wealth in the hands of a believer is like water in the ocean. It surrounds him but never drowns him. The believer understands that every coin, every opportunity, every resource is a test from the Almighty. The question is never how much we have, but what we do with what we have. Wealth becomes meaningful only when it is used to serve, to heal, to uplift, and to bring benefit to others. The true believer never allows wealth to become his master. He sees it as a tool, a means to do good, to support family, to help the needy, and to build a society rooted in justice and compassion. Wealth becomes a mirror that reflects the state of the heart. When the heart is pure, wealth becomes a blessing. When the heart is filled with greed, wealth becomes a curse. The Islamic economic model teaches that every financial decision carries a moral weight, and every transaction is a reflection of faith. It transforms what could be a worldly possession into an act of worship. When a Muslim earns through honest labor, he is rewarded not just in this world, but in the hereafter. His effort becomes a form of worship because it sustains his family, strengthens his community, and contributes to the common good. Wealth in this sense is not just material. It becomes spiritual. It builds character and shapes destiny. Islam teaches that when wealth is earned with integrity, it brings peace of mind. It feeds not only the body but also the soul. The Prophet's companions were traders, farmers, and craftsmen. They were people of means, yet their wealth never controlled them. They lived simply, gave generously, and spent wisely. Their wealth served humanity and became a source of mercy for others. When a believer gives from what he loves, his wealth multiplies in blessing. Charity, or giving for the sake of God, purifies both the giver and the wealth itself. It removes greed from the heart and fills it with gratitude. The Islamic system encourages generosity not as an occasional act, but as a way of life. Every believer is reminded that his neighbor, his worker, and even a stranger has a right over his wealth. The act of giving is not just about kindness, it is justice. It reminds us that what we own is not entirely ours, that the blessings we enjoy are meant to be shared. Wealth without compassion leads to arrogance, but wealth with purpose leads to peace. The difference between the two lies in the heart. A person who sees wealth as a responsibility uses it to solve problems, not to create them. He becomes a source of hope for others. He builds schools, supports the poor, funds businesses, and helps the oppressed. Every act of giving becomes a statement of faith, a declaration that he values people more than possessions. In the Islamic view, true prosperity is not measured by how much we accumulate, but by how much good flows from our hands. Islamic economics is built on balance. It does not call for poverty, nor does it glorify excess. It seeks harmony between earning and giving, between personal benefit and social responsibility. The believer is encouraged to work hard, to seek success, but to remain humble. Wealth is never an end. It is a means to a higher purpose, to bring justice to the world, to support families, and to establish a system where no one sleeps hungry. When this balance is achieved, the economy becomes stable, communities thrive, and the hearts of people become united. When we trade with sincerity, our wealth becomes more than numbers. It becomes light. A truthful businessman is honored because his trade uplifts others. He does not cheat, deceive, or exploit, because he knows that his profit lies not in trickery but in trust. Islam teaches that the blessings of trade are hidden in honesty, fairness, and good intention. A man who treats his customers with respect, pays his workers fairly, and invests in ethical ventures is building not just wealth, but a legacy of righteousness. Such wealth benefits generations and earns prayers long after he is gone. But when wealth becomes an obsession, it blinds the heart. It creates greed, competition, and injustice. People begin to chase money for its own sake and forget that life is short and accountable. Islam warns us against this illusion. The true purpose of wealth is not luxury but legacy. What we give lasts longer than what we keep. What we build for others returns to us in blessings, in peace, and in eternal reward. Imagine a society where every rich person feels responsible for the poor, where businesses are built on fairness, where trade uplifts the weak, and where success inspires generosity instead of pride. That is the society Islam envisions. It is a world where wealth circulates, where every person has a share in the blessings of the earth. The Islamic economic model is not only about money, it is about moral growth, community strength, and human dignity. When we spend with humility, we acknowledge that everything we have belongs to the one who gave it. We are only caretakers of his trust. Every time we help someone in need, we are not losing, we are investing in the eternal. When we support a struggling family, forgive a debt, or contribute to a cause, we are planting seeds that will bear fruit in this world and the next. Our wealth then becomes worship, our trade becomes service, and our giving becomes gratitude. This is the heart of the Islamic economic vision: to live with purpose, to earn with honesty, and to give with love. Wealth, when purified, unites hearts and uplifts societies. It transforms fear into hope, greed into generosity, and selfishness into compassion. The believer understands that his true success lies not in how much he possesses, but in how many lives he touches with his wealth. When wealth is used for good, it becomes a bridge between people and a means to draw closer to God. So let us not chase wealth for status or power. Let us earn it with purity, hold it with humility, and use it with wisdom. Every act of trade, every job, every effort can become worship if it is done with sincerity and fairness. Let our wealth serve humanity. Let it be the means through which we build a world of justice, mercy, and balance. For when we live with purpose, when we treat wealth as trust, and when we give from our hearts, we do not just build stronger economies. We build a stronger ummah, one filled with light, love, and divine blessing.